This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined by Shane McGuigan. We're down at McGuigan's gym in London. How you doing, Shane?
Good, thank you, mate. Nice Lakers top you got going on for yourself there today. Thanks,
mate. Yeah, it's actually wash day in the Tebbutt household, and this is one of the only things that I've actually got that's clean.
LeBron Tebbutt headbutt.
Big LeBron fan. A lot of my interviews are starting very strangely lately. Let's just get down to the boxing stuff. Let's get civil. Yeah, how you doing, Shane? How's things?
Yeah, great, mate. Nah, really good. Yeah, I mean, good win from Campbell. We haven't talked since that. Yeah, looked good. He's resting up now. He's actually been in camp this week for a little bit, just going on holiday next week. Obviously, the main man himself, Taylor's flying in camp. He's 6 weeks out on Saturday. Yeah, started sparring now. So he's had a guy called Sia Ozgul in this week, doing some good work with him. Very aggressive. So, you know, we're all guns blazing, preparing for YARDE-KOVALEV, who is obviously scheduled for May 18th. So we're tickets went on sale. Josh Taylor's boxing May 18th. Hopefully Baranchyk is our opponent, and hopefully we fight for a world title. So I think he hasn't signed the bout agreement yet, but I think that will be done very shortly. And then, yeah, I mean, we can just. I mean, he's getting his teeth stuck into training anyway. I mean, he's preparing the best for the best version of himself anyway. So it's just tactically and everything like that we have to sort of start working on. And yeah, hopefully very, very shortly he's the world champion.
I was going to come on to kind of the Taylor World Boxing Super Series stuff a bit later on, but seeing as you've spoken about it, we might as well. Yeah, a lot of rumours that Baranchyk is not going to fight in May. I think his manager twice came out and said that wasn't going to happen. What update can you give us on
that? Not a lot. I mean, I'm getting probably the same rumours and whispers that you are. I mean, the alarming things for me is he's changed trainer. He's now training with Freddie Roach. And I think that was, you know, the man. I mean, I don't understand why he would have gone away from his Julio Diaz, isn't it? Is the Cuban coach. So, I mean, after a great win against Yigit, become a world champion, and now he's changed trainer. I think the management and the trainer had some dispute. So, Baranchyk went to Roach. So, you know, that's an alarming factor for us, but. You know, it's just all I can say is, you know, we know that, you know, we're going to be fighting for a world title in this next fight, whether it's Ivan Baranchyk or not. The IBF put Taylor versus Baranchyk to put purse bids, so, and the tournament have secured that. So I think, you know, it's us against Baranchyk, and if he doesn't box, I think he gets stripped. So that's the information I've been told. So. And I think, you know, for us, that's what we entered the tournament. I don't think we didn't enter it to fight anyone specific or avoid anyone. We've entered it because he can come away with, you know, in the space of 12 months, which will probably be a little bit extended now with the delay in the semi-finals. But it will be, you know, he'll come away with hopefully 2 belts and a unified world champion. So. That's something. You know, obviously money's great in it and stuff like that for Josh, but like, you know, it's a prestige of winning the Ali Trophy, and it's coming away with guaranteed world titles.
I just want to backtrack. You said something that's quite interesting to me. You said alarm bells for you guys with Baranchyk moving to Freddie Roach. How did you mean? What do you mean?
I just think it's alarm bells in the sense that, you know, why would you move from a trainer that's got you success at world level? Without, you know, he looked great against Yigit, so it was probably his best performance. So, you know, I think that's an in-house issue with people trying to gather control and pulling them away from someone that might be sort of stepping outside the line. So, you know, the manager clearly towed the line and brought him to Roach. I think, you know, with his aggressive style, with Freddie's aggressive style of coaching, I think that's a good fit anyway. So I don't think, you know, we're going to be preparing for an even better Ivan Baranchyk, but it's just, speaking from experience myself, working with fighters, it does take a couple of fights to get a good rapport with your boxer and that communication in between rounds and be on the same wavelength. So, he's going into a very hard fight with a new trainer in Glasgow. There's a lot of things that's going to have to be asked about Baranchyk.
How's Josh been with all of this kind of uncertainty? I mean, I just spoke to him. He's very much in kind of camp mode at the minute. So even if he was distracted, he wouldn't tell me. But as well as I do, as well as Josh does, build up to some of his other fights. I mean, the Postal fight, one of them, and various other stages of his career, he has found it difficult to kind of not concentrate and stay on task, but when things haven't been going smoothly or perfectly to plan, it has affected him. Has it been different for this?
Well, I only think that the one fight that he looked maybe too much in the future was against the Victor Postal fight, and clearly that wasn't his best performance. But it did mark him as as a extremely well-rounded, gifted boxer, because he handled the occasion with the tournament, on the horizon, big money fights on the horizon, and also he got a little bit hurt in that fight, had to rebuild, regroup, and came on strong in the later round. So there's a lot of question marks asked about him, and I think that camp he was just a little bit, it was like, oh, if I don't win this, these big fights aren't going to happen. But that, you can't look at it like that. It's just take every fight, take every round as it comes. Never mind take every fight as it comes. And I think he understands that now. He's relocated down here into London. Danielle's came down. She got a job literally on this high street out there on the road. So she works in a salon. So there's so many more boxes ticked for him now. He's a lot more settled down here, and his training is going to plan. One of Josh Taylor's traits was early on is, I don't know if I'm doing enough. I've got to keep pushing. I've got to keep, I want to train. I want to be the best every day. But you're not going to be the best. We're not machines. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have days where you feel great and days where you feel bad. It's about peaking. It's about coming in on a night. And a couple of those performances, he's been fast tracked throughout his career, and especially at championship distance. And he had it in his head that he can do 12 rounds now with world-class boxers, and that is a big box tick for him. And he's very level-headed. He's handling this whole, is he going to be in, is he not, very well, because as he mentioned in his interview that it's just like going back to the amateur days. Some days it doesn't matter who you box. You sort of see a tape of them a few hours before, and you sort of try and devise a little game plan, or and go out there and do your best. So there's nothing. Whoever if there is a replacement, whoever's in front of him, there's nothing that he hasn't seen before in his boxing days. It's just about making sure that we have enough time to strategically come up with a game plan and come up with the right sparring partners, and deliver the best Josh Taylor performance.
When you're from a trainer perspective, when you're training somebody, preparing somebody for a fight that a lot of people, or even the fighter themselves in this instance, are talking about pulling out, does that affect your preparation at all? Do you kind of taper or tailor things to not more generic, but something a little bit like that? Does that linger in the back of your mind at all?
Not necessarily with this one, because there's a tournament. There's a fight date, and we know that we're out in this time. I mean, if it was if we were a boxer fighting for a world title and that world champion was going, I don't know, I've got an injury. All right, well then we might be going, all right, let's taper it back, because it might get delayed a few weeks. Like George when he boxed Badu Jack, I wasn't obviously working with him in that camp, but there was a delay, and then and I think that then you got to sort of try and tweak it a little bit. But this is a tournament. We know the fight date. We know that we have to get him in perfect shape to go into the tournament, and we will have enough. We'll have adequate time to to do so, to sort of to make sure we come up with a perfect game plan. It's a bit like, and even if it is a Callum Smith, you remember when Callum got that replacement from Bramer pulled out. Nicky Holson. You can adapt. These guys are world-class fighters. They can adapt. It might not bring out the best performance of themselves, but the guy who's coming in last minutes, he's not fully prepared either. So I'm sure that's just the way you got to take it.
Final word on Josh. I keep asking him the same question. Like, are you looking at other fighters? You're looking at Morris Hooker, Ramirez? He always says no. I don't know why I continue to ask him. Your job as a trainer is to look at other fighters in the division, potential future opponents. What do you make of your Hookers, Jose Ramirez? Obviously, they're not in the tournament. You've got Relic, who's in the tournament, and Prograis in the tournament. How do you rank those guys?
I think Morris Hooker's the best of the bunch. I think he's tall, decent puncher. He's got a bit about he does everything pretty well, and I think him and Prograis are probably the two biggest threats for Josh Taylor.
We spoke about him at the very start of the interview. Let's go back on Luke Campbell. Good performance against Adrian Young out in Philadelphia. Still waiting on a decision from the WBC as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the latest news. So, Zor Abdullah was going to be boxing Devin Haney for the sort of final eliminator to box Luke Campbell for the vacant title if Mikey Garcia chooses to vacate. The WBC was supposed to put him under a lot of pressure to make this decision very quickly, but the decision hasn't been made as of yet. I haven't spoke to Eddie in the last few days, but that's the latest I've heard. So, it looks like we're going to be boxing in July, and hopefully, for that world title. It's just a bit of a shame because the WBC obviously are going to respect Mikey Garcia because he's a 4-weight world champion in that governing body. So he has a lot of credibility and pull within that governing body. And we just have to respect that, but we are itching to get him his world title. It's long overdue, and he's ready to go. So he come off a great win. He looked good. He's back in camp, ticking over a little bit now, and then we're going to be all guns blazing, preparing for July, middle of July hopefully, end of July latest, and that world title fight.
If it is Devin Haney, for those who maybe aren't as familiar with him as I'm sure you are, how difficult a fight is that? Obviously, he's unbeaten American. Some of them have a lot of hype around them. Some of them kind of go a little bit under the radar. What's Devin Haney like?
I've seen quite a bit of him. He hasn't been tested. We don't know how good he is. There's loads of rumours that he's one of the next up and coming sort of superstars. He's definitely been touted by Mayweather as one of the guys to watch out for, and he's got someone like Gervonta Davis. If he's giving him the same appraisal as someone like Gervonta Davis, he obviously has shown a lot inside the Mayweather gym. So you've got to respect that, and they know their boxing. So, but in terms of looking at tape, I don't think he's a massive puncher. He's quite slippery sort of. He can counter punch quite well. He can punch in combination pretty well, but he doesn't do anything special. And I don't think he's not that big for the weight. And I believe Luke Campbell would take him out. I think that this sort of is come too soon for him. If this title does present itself, I think come too soon. Correct. He could correct me if I'm wrong in the future and by beating Luke Campbell, but I don't see it. I think Luke Campbell would be far too good for him. I think Luke is improving all the time, and although he's 31 years of age, punches extremely hard, very good boxing brain, extremely disciplined. He's had his setbacks, he's learnt from them, he's rebuilt, and he's improving. So he's bringing the best Luke Campbell to the gym every day, and he needs this opportunity to fight for a world title. Lomachenko's obviously got all the other 3 belts. He's fighting Crolla. We know that's the biggest fight out there. Depends what Mikey Garcia does if he wants to come back down. So there's loads of huge fights out there, but I just want him to get his hands on a world title as quick as possible and win it. That's our first goal. If we achieve that, then we go on from there.
I've spoken about Mikey Garcia. It's actually the first time I've spoken to you since the Spence fight. What did you make of that fight?
I just thought the size was a defining factor. Spence, he's just very, very special. It just looked physically just huge compared to beating him on the inside, beating for speed as well. The one thing people were always going to say about Garcia was you'd have the speed advantage, but Mikey Garcia's got fantastic timing. He's got very heavy hands, but Spence has got a good chin, equally as good timing, and just the size advantage on him. And it was hard for Mikey Garcia to get going. He couldn't get his jab off, he couldn't get his shots off, and he was overreaching. And when he was overreaching, he was getting paid for. He was paying the price for it. So it was a little bit of a letdown of a fight, because we were all expecting this 50-50 tear up, and you would have thought that the one thing that Spence had on him was just the size, but that was such a big factor for him that it just negated all what Mikey Garcia could do.
Do you think we'll see Mikey again at 135?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, he looked like he put on a lot of size there, but there was still lots of sort of weight to come off around his midriff and stuff. You got to remember he started featherweight. I think he could go back down to 135, but maybe, but I think he might sort of bring himself back down to 140 and then go back down if the Lomachenko fight or another massive fight presents itself. So, but how much did that take out of Mikey Garcia?
That's kind of where I was going next, really. He took a lot of shots, particularly in the last few rounds. A lot of people thought the fight potentially could have been stopped. How much, from your experience of working, or not necessarily working with fighters who have taken those kind of beatings, but certainly seeing it, how much could that take out of him going forward?
You just never know, because it's like a form of trauma. If you have that experience where you can't get anything off and it's so frustrating, he's getting hit so hard, and you can do all the sparring and go back in the gym and you wear the bar and with the bigger gloves on, and then whenever you're in there again, you can kid it in the gym. Do you know what I mean? But you can't do it in real life, and I think he definitely took a lot of shots. I don't know, but he's one of these guys that just, personally, I think he'll brush it off and come back just as strong. Because I think the character of the man is, he's just took 3 years. Was it 2.5 years out in that big and came back and just looked phenomenal. But that was his first loss, and you never know with some boxers. You got the Nassim Muhammad, for instance, was untouchable, had his loss and came back and he just wasn't the same. So you never know if he's, I wouldn't call him an on-top fighter because that's a harsh way of putting it, but if he's a winner and then he's had the loss and just that bit between the teeth isn't there, you never know. But yeah, I mean, whatever he's done in his career, it's been amazing. 4-weight world champion. I'm sure he's earned enough money to enjoy it himself. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see a family as well, like his family all involved and all doing some good, amazing stuff at the world level. And there's no pointing the finger after a big loss like that. It's just take it and move on.
Final word on all things lightweight. Vasyl Lomachenko versus Anthony Crolla next weekend in LA. A lot of people, I spoke to Joe Gallagher last week. I actually interviewed him with a Lomachenko hoodie on, which he really appreciated. Yeah, he really liked it. What do you make of that fight? A lot of people see that as mission impossible for Anthony Crolla. I
think so. I really do. I think Anthony Crolla a few years ago was a decent force at 135 pounds. I don't think he was ever an elite boxer. He was a solid world champion. But Lomachenko is the elite of the elite. He's pound for pound, there or thereabouts the best. And when you come forward to a guy, and mix it with a guy like Lomachenko, I think your best bet against Lomachenko is to sort of stand back, try and walk him onto shots, and be negative, because he's an entertaining fighter who's going to make you, force you to throw and sort of overwhelm you with his movement. But Crolla's meets people head on, but he's never met someone that's going to create the angles that he's going to create. But it's his massive fight. It's his big payday. It's his big opportunity. I'm sure he'll come up. He'll raise the bar an extra 10, 15% than what he's ever done before. But personally, I just don't think that's enough. I can see it being stopped maybe mid to late rounds.
Where would you put that with regards to kind of boxing upsets if he were to pull that off?
Oh, I mean, the biggest of the biggest. You know, it's like it would be bigger than Lloyd Honeyghan upsetting. Corey. So, I mean, he's he's a huge underdog.
Lomachenko also been mentioned as a possible opponent for Luke Campbell. Eddie did an interview with Coogan the other day, and he was saying that Lomachenko wants to fight him for the vacant WBC. Fight you'd entertain?
Definitely. We want to fight for the world title. But listen, I mean, like, if it means we have to fight Lomachenko, we fight Lomachenko. You know, you got the opportunity to win all of the belts, and I believe that Luke Campbell on his day can beat anyone at 135 pounds. So I mean, it would be a huge ask, but you know, he's an Olympic gold medalist. He can mix it at the top level. He's showed that in the amateurs. His skill set is there. He's got his punching power. He's got a little bit bigger now, so for the weight, and you know that. I believe Luke Campbell's going to box Lomachenko at some stage of his career, whether it happens next for the vacant title, or if we win a world title and it happens 2 or 3 fights down the line, it's going to happen at some stage. Lomachenko's in no rush to move up to 140 pounds. I don't think he'll be, you know, he'll look very, very small up there, because I'm pretty sure he walks in around at that, you know, the fighting weight. So, you know, it's something that's going to happen, and it's only a matter of time.
Lomachenko's last fight against Pedraza, he was coming off the back of shoulder surgery. It was a closer fight than a lot of people had expected. A lot of people expected him to kind of blow Pedraza away. That didn't happen. 397 amateur fights, reconstructive shoulder surgery. Could we have possibly... I mean, obviously, you just mentioned the weight. I mean, he's started off as a featherweight. Do you think we've potentially seen the best of Lomachenko? While also, in my opinion, he's still the best fighter in the world, but yeah.
I mean, there's no signs of him slipping. I think he lives the life. You know, he's a amazing athlete, and he's done everything meticulously his whole way through his amateur career and his professional career. So I don't necessarily think, you know, his best days are behind him. I think he hasn't boxed the best fighters yet. You know, I think in the next couple of years he'll be tested with a Garcia, or you know, with you know, Luke Campbell, or the winner of the WBSS at 140. These are big fights for him, and I think, you know, it's just going to cement his sort of, you know, his legacy. But I also think, you know, Pedraza fight, he didn't look as you know, as overwhelming, but I don't think he's a massive puncher. I think, you know, he breaks people down, and Pedraza got knocked out by Gervonta Davis, but that was like one phenomenal shot. And you can't underestimate Gervonta Davis. He's a phenomenal boxer himself, who's on the way up. So there's still lots of tests out there for Lomachenko, and lots of tests that he has to overcome, but he's the front runner for now.
Yeah, probably worth pointing out that I wasn't suggesting that he'd slipped. Just one of those questions, really. Moving.
Your bad mouthing.
You're trying to get no.
You can label it.
Yeah, that would be an interesting title. Moving away from the little guys, Chris Billam-Smith. I've been waiting for a fight announcement for Chris Billam-Smith for some time now. When can I get it?
Chris Billam-Smith's the most avoided domestic cruiserweight. He's, you know, we tried to get the Isaac Chamberlain fight. He said that Barry McGuigan didn't want the fight. That's absolutely nonsense. Dad said go and speak to Eddie Hearn, because there's potential of that fight happening. I get where Isaac's coming from. He thinks, you know, it's a bill topper in its own right, potential on next gen show, but Isaac's not he's not at the front of the queue in terms of, you know, Eddie's stable of fighters. He's not there. He's, you know, after a loss against Lawrence Coley, and you know, he didn't look amazing in his comeback fight against Luke Watkins. He won it, but he didn't look sensational in it. He's at the back of the queue. So, you know, Chris Billam-Smith versus Isaac Chamberlain is not going to be, you know, for Eddie Hearn, who's making, you know, Canelo versus Jacobs. It's not going to be, you know, his first priority, but it's a fight that I think fits in well in a next gen show is one of the big features. Or we want Richard Riakporhe. We've asked for that fight as well. We wanted it in May the 10th, but he's gone quiet on us on that one. I don't know what's going on with Riakporhe's side. I don't know if they are fit or if they want it. I think he's come off a good win against Tommy McCarthy, but McCarthy's best days are behind him. So I think Billam-Smith versus Richard Riakporhe is a great fight. You got the front runner domestically is obviously Lomachenko. He's done a good job against what he can match her, but there's some good fights out there for us. There's Craig Glover's just come off a loss, but there's lots of good domestic little tussles that we can have. We've got Luke Watkins, we've got Chamberlain, we've got Riakporhe, we've got even McCarthy again, or whoever's there that Eddie wants to put us in against. But I want him to have championship fights now. 10-round fights, 10, 12-round fights and start picking up some titles and getting some momentum behind him, because he's improving all the time in the gym, and for a guy that's had 45 amateur fights and only, I think it was like 31 wins or something like that, he's with one stoppage, he's 8-0 now with 7 knockouts, and he's starting to punch hard, and he's really filling into his frame and coming into himself. So I believe he's the dark horse in the division, and in a few years' time he's going to take them all out.
Which fight's a more difficult fight? The Isaac Chamberlain fight or the Richard Riakporhe fight?
I think the Riakporhe fight's more dangerous in the sense, he's a bigger puncher. Mark Tibbs has done a good job with him, settled him down a little bit. He's got to use his jab a little bit more. He's feinting a little bit more. I think there's a big improvement. Some Mark and Jimmy have done a good job of sort of settling him down, because he was a bit too negative against Sam Hyde, and then he was sort of freezing and panicking. Whereas against McCarthy, he was using a jab well. He's setting things up, and McCarthy put in a couple of good attacks that didn't faze him, and he caught him with a good shot and finished him well. But in terms of skill set, I think Isaac's a lot more of a skilled fighter. But I think he lacks the natural punching power, and he lacks the attributes that Riakporhe has in terms of length. So I think stylistically it will probably be a more entertaining fight with Isaac Chamberlain, because they'll meet a little bit and exchange more punches. It'll be be better in the eye, but I think the more dangerous fight is Riakporhe, but I think he's less durable than Isaac Chamberlain.
You mentioned Lomachenko. He obviously holds the British and the Commonwealth at cruiserweight titles. A lot of talk of him fighting Denis Lebedev for the WBA world title, which is quite a step from Uwadi Camachos, etc. Just your thoughts on that? Massive
step up, but I think Okole's, I think he's ready for it. I think with his amateur pedigree, I think with his just athleticism and size and awkwardness, I think you're going to see the best of him when he gets tested. I've seen him in here. He's not pretty on the eye, but he's punching very hard, and he's got a new coach now. He looks like he's adding some things to his game. So, and I believe Lebedev's at the end of his career. I think Okole will beat him, and if he knocks out Lebedev, that's a huge statement worldwide. And I think it's with the tournament going on in the WBSS, it's, he could elevate himself up to world level and get the winner of the tournament. And obviously Usyk's going to start vacating those belts, and people are going to start picking them up. So there's belts out there for him to pick up worldwide.
Moving away from kind of all things related to you, just pick your brain on a few things before we run out of battery. This past weekend, Liverpool show, the only fight I really want your opinion on is Anthony Fowler versus Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I think Fowler just looked a little bit fried at the weight. I'm not going to take anything away from Scott Fitzgerald because it was a great performance, but I just think, Anthony Fowler's a good, decent puncher, but by bringing yourself down so much in weight, it just takes that snap of your shots off, and he hit him with it, the kitchen sink and more. And I think his next move should be going up to middleweight. They're slightly slower. he doesn't necessarily have a bad chin because he got dropped in the last round. It was more of an exhaustion thing. And I think he can go back and rebuild. I mean, a loss these days isn't the end of the world. He's taken it very, very, very well. You know, he's joked about it on social media. And you know, I like Anthony Fowler. I think he's a good guy. And you know, him and Dave, they can go back and they can work on things. But you know, he needs to listen. He needs to listen and learn from that, and think, like, you know, you can't just walk through people. You can't unload your shots and waste shots, because when you're heavy-handed like he is, every time you miss, it takes something out of you. And the more tired you are, the more fragile you are. So he has to be a little bit more calculated with his shots. And Fitzgerald needs to just capitalise on that momentum, because that was a great win. I mean, he's mad as it comes. It just looks absolutely bonkers. And if someone can settle him down and keep that sort of craziness about him in terms of getting the most out of his training camps and pushing himself to, you know, the darkest depths to bring out the best of him, but then he need constructive advice and just keep him controlled, because you know, he can really do something. Maybe not at world level, but you know, I think he can get up to that standard and definitely test people. But I'd love to see that Cheeseman fight, because I think Ted was flat that night when he lost, and I think Cheeseman versus Fitzgerald is a fantastic fight. I mean, I would pay to watch it, and I don't go to very many boxing events and pay to watch fights, because I see it every day in the gym. Do you know what I mean? I'm sick of boxing, but I tell you what, I'd definitely be tuning in for that fight. So, I mean, it's a great win from Fitzgerald, and it was a bit of a not a shock, because I knew that was always going to be the potential of Fowler, that he just a little bit fried on the weight. If I was him, I'd move up, I'd rebuild himself. You know, if you're good enough, you're big enough, and he should move up, and that would be my advice.
Last couple of things to pick your brain on, because I know you got to go for dinner. Didn't want to eat with me, but whatever. Anthony Yarde versus Sergey Kovalev, mandated for the WBO light heavyweight title. I think Monday is the purse bids. First of all, do you think that fight's going to happen?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. The reason I don't think it's going to happen, I think, is because, you know, Warren doesn't have that many fighters, and Anthony Yarde is his biggest star coming through. So I think, why would you risk him against, you know, the last time he brought over Kovalev, we've seen Nathan Cleverly get beaten up in 3 rounds. He's declined a lot since then. Kovalev has, but he's a brilliant fighter. I don't think, you know, Anthony Yarde needs some tests. He needs some proper tests domestically as well. Not just, you know, why not fight Jose Burton? Why not fight Callum Johnson? I'm sure those fights can get made. I know they're 2 different promoters, but I'm sure that they can get made. And you know, I bet my bottom dollar that Eddie would let Jose Burton go over to BT and box Anthony Yarde. I mean, I still think he's got the capability of beating those guys, but I think he doesn't have the capability of beating Kovalev. And the best British light heavyweight is Joshua Buatsi, for sure. So that's my tip.
Let's just pick up on that with Yarde. It seems to me that there isn't sufficient evidence to pick him against Sergey Kovalev, which doesn't necessarily mean that he can't beat him. But would you agree with that?
He hasn't been hit with a good shot yet. Not saying that he can't take one. Everyone said that Mayweather, Tunde will probably say, well, Mayweather never got hit with a good shot. But that's exactly what he said. Yeah, but the fact is that you need to have acid tests. You need to have world-class sparring. You know, I asked Tunde and Anthony Yarde to come over for the Eubank camp, to come over and do some sparring, and they didn't come over. So I think he needs to be tested, like in the gym all the time. He needs 1 or 2 more tests. I'm not saying he's a great athlete. He's a fantastic athlete. Got heavy hands. Does everything really, really well. Leaky at times. Gets hit too. He gets clipped a bit too much in that last fight, but he was fighting a nobody, so I'm sure he'll sharpen himself up if he was boxing someone of merit. But it would be silly to chuck him in with Kovalev at this stage of his career, because he's just not ready for it. And but I know what they want to do. They don't want to test him at domestic level in case he comes up short. So you just got to sit and sort of see. But that's a hard division to win a world title in. Wow, you got Betabayev. His best chance, in my opinion, would probably be Betabayev. I wouldn't go near Kovalev and I wouldn't go near Bivol. I'd go towards Betabayev, because although he's equally as hard of a puncher, he's been dropped a few times. There's a little bit more chink in the armour, and Kovalev's been renowned for not taking his job seriously and enjoying a bit of drink and that in training camps and stuff before his losses. But he's turned himself around. He's rebuilt. So I don't think I'd want to fight him now. I would go a different route.
Just mentioned the Chris Eubank Jr. camp. Chris Eubank Jr. has himself another new trainer. He's aligned himself with Virgil Hunter, had one fight, a successful fight, might I add, with Nate Vasquez. Just your thoughts on that. I know Chris is somebody who you've come up against. I know George, I was in Chris's dressing room after the Gale fight. I know George and Chris get on now. What are your thoughts on that and kind of Chris Eubank Jr.'s development?
I mean, I don't know why he left Diaz, but Vasquez, sorry, my bad. I don't know why he left Nate Vasquez, because I think although it was his best, it was his best win. It wasn't his best performance, but it was his best win. So you got some momentum with someone. You spent some time in camp. I don't know if this move going over to Virgil Hunter is to say, all right, well, I'm going to base myself in the States, and the fights out here. He signed with Al Heyman. It's like, okay, with the fights out there, they probably want to stage him in America. You've got Caleb Plant. You've got other world champions out there that he can box. Or you've got Anthony Durrell, for instance, who's like, you got so many guys that are in and around, like guys that have just lost for world titles, and that he can sort of keep himself busy with out there. So maybe he's thinking, all right, I'm going to be boxing in America quite a lot. I'll go and link up with an American trainer. He's a fascinating person to talk to, Virgil. I mean, I remember with being out in El Paso with Frampton and just picking his brains, and he's not shy in terms of he won't keep his thoughts to himself. He'll tell you, and he'll give out some of his knowledge. So I remember sitting there picking his brains and listening to him, and I think he's an extremely knowledgeable person, but he's a very defensively sound, move away, risk averse sort of coach. I think someone like Chris Eubank Jr. needs to be boxing at high intensity, using his jab, tracking people, working on his combinations, and I remember we were talking just then about someone like Robert Garcia. He could have been maybe a bit more suited going with a slightly more attacking coach like Garcia, but he's always going to do what he wants to do because he's his own man. So I think his decisions will never surprise me.
You just mentioned kind of having that conversation with Virgil Hunter. You've come into contact with Chris Eubank Jr. and Senior, PE teacher. Do you see that potentially having, would there be a potential for that to kind of go the wrong way, as it were, between Virgil Hunter and Chris Eubank Jr.? Could you see there being a potential clash of personalities?
Oh, for sure. But there has to be an element of respect from Chris Eubank Jr. He doesn't show it to certain people, but he showed it to Floyd Mayweather Sr. He should show it to Virgil Hunter, and I think that's going to bring the best out of him. If you don't respect someone, you're not going to sit there and listen and learn. So it was pointless. When they brought Adam Booth in, it was Senior's decision to bring Adam Booth in, and Junior didn't want it. And he didn't feel like he needed it at that stage of his career. I don't think anyone domestically, he would listen to, because he just doesn't want to listen. Didn't have respect for them. He needs to go out to America and probably go out there and do it that way.
Final one before we shoot off. Amir Khan versus Terence Crawford comes up in a couple of weeks' time. I asked you about this a couple of months ago. Just wondered what, if at all, your feelings have changed on that fight.
What did I answer a couple of
I'm not going to tell you.
I mean, I don't have a clue. I mean, the Amir Khan that boxed Canelo would have had a chance to frustrate him, pick him at distance. You know, keep his punches straight, keep his movement. He was really fast on his legs that fight. Obviously, he got hit with a phenomenal shot that would have knocked out a horse, never mind a boxer. But you know, he's declined a hell of a lot. I just don't see it. I don't see him causing him any problems because, you know, Crawford's, you know, he's used to boxing speedy guys. Yeah. I think I might have mentioned Gamboa. If Gamboa troubled him with that speed, I think Khan could have, but I think Khan's speed's gone a little bit. His punch resistance gone, and he's just not the same fighter. But I would have loved to have seen it 3 years ago.
Amir's also gone back to Virgil Hunter. He was with Joe Goosen for a couple of fights. Yeah. Good move?
Definitely a good move. Joe Goosen's a great coach, but he's far too attacking, and Virgil Hunter's a very good defensively sound coach. Sort of doesn't get him to load up, gets him to just pick shots, move, frustrate people, and that's something he has to do against Terence Crawford. That's something Amir Khan has to do whoever he fights. And I think, you know, he was fighting a little bit brave with Goosen, but it was at a lower level. So, but I just think, you know, you need that communication. You need the discipline throughout the training camps. And Virgil Hunt is someone that will get someone to shadow box for 45 minutes and just work on 2 or 3 things. I mean, it's monotonous, but look at what he created with Andre Ward. Just an amazingly skilled technician. So I think it's the best move. I just don't think his attributes are there.
Okay, well, I think that's about everything. Anything to add before we go?
Not really, no. I've got loads of things to add, but probably not boxing related, and I'm not going to start going off on conspiracy theories like the rest of them.
Yeah, we'll save that. There's too many of them flying around your gym. Shane McGuigan, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks very much, Rob. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.